number one source, Sports Card Nation. The hobby is the people. Sports Card Nation.
What is up, everybody? Welcome to episode 382 of Sports Card Nation, and our guest from last week has returned for the conclusion of our conversation, and I hope you enjoyed it as much as I did, and some great insight, some great information. He's got his finger on the pulse of the hobby, and I hope he does if he plans to open, have 100 stores under Replay Sportscards. I'm talking about Mike Martin, who is back this week to conclude our great conversation from last week. So if you missed out on last week's episodes, it's never too late to backtrack and check that out. And part 2 is coming up here in a few minutes. I want to thank, as always, our great sponsors, Iron Sports Cards. Rob's got you covered when it comes to bulk submissions. Sports Collectors Digest, I have the privilege to write a monthly column for them. Hobby Hotline, our Saturday mixed host live show, and Upper Deck Sports Cards. Great designs, leader in the hockey world, and they make other cards too, like the Goodwin's Champions, Allure, and all that good stuff. So with that being said, here is part 2 with our great conversation with Mike Martin of Replay Sportscards. But there's just such a demand for grading. And listen,
for sure,
as someone who's a bulk subber, and I'm sure you see it too, right? Some of the stuff that gets grading, again, beauty's in the eye of the beholder, right? But there's, sometimes you scratch your head like, unless maybe it's sentimental, but like, I'm not sure why this one's getting subbed. And I've heard people refer to the time period as like the junk slab era, where just so many people are grading. But we're seeing now with the new price levels that people have to make more of a conscious decision, like, do I pay that to have this graded?
For
like,
sure.
Where do you see, when you hear that, and I'm sure you've heard the term, junk slab error, kind of, how do you see that when, that sort of aspect when it comes to the grading?
Yeah, I've actually not heard that term, but that's actually hilarious. I like that. I honestly, and again, kind of goes back to what we're like, I really do think like there's just that many more collectors, right? Like, and so if there's more collectors, going to be more cards submitted. But I agree with you entirely. I think the idea of having to make that conscious decision, it's not $18, right? Or, it's a change, right? And so you have to make that decision. It's going to help them on the submission front. Less people, grading stuff that, I mean, you've been to shows. I mean, you've seen what some people are, grading. You're like, what is going on? Like, why would you grade that base, whatever, right? And non-rookie, vet, whatever it is. And so honestly, what we do at Replay is really cool. I don't need to make a fortune on PSA. I need to have a customer for life. And so that's always our mentality. And so people come in, they could drop 20 cards off with us. Our guys will go through them, tell them like, it's not worth sending this card. And again, they might say, hey, it's PC, let's send it. Totally makes sense. And then we'll review the cards. We'll kick any cards that wouldn't, grade well enough for where they would be happy, right? 8+, 9 to 10 range. We'll kind of give some ranges. And it ends up resulting in less, top line revenue for us, but it has, the trust in us and saves the customer money in the long term, even if we're a few bucks above what, PSA is, for us to make our money. There's also shipping involved and insurance and all of that stuff, which we're fully covered. So it's a real full service, one price, everything included, no hidden fees. And then on top of that, just the expertise to be able to say, hey, this is 15 raw, $37 is a PSA 10. It's not worth sending, at these prices. And so and then we give the customer the decision, of course, like if they want to grade it for personal collection or if it means something to them. That's the other thing people get lost in. It's not always about, you could grade the amount of $15 Met autos that I grade, you would be beside yourself. But I do it because it's staying in my PC forever. And so like that's the other side of it. It means, if it means something to you, it doesn't matter if it's $5 or $5,000, you can grade it. But again, back to your point, I think just it helps people understand, like, you don't have to grade everything. You should be grading the stuff that is going to increase the value, or again, on the collector side, what means something to you. And so, I think, again, like, I really look at a lot of things that are happening in the hobby, and I feel really good about them. Do I want PSA to be lower? Absolutely. I'd love to. It would help me, sleep at night, knowing that it's a few bucks cheaper, when I'm grading these junk Mets, Rangers, Knicks, Jets cards. It would help me, but I do see the value in because the time and the energy that it takes at their offices to make it a little more of a conscious decision.
Yeah, it's a great point, and it's always nice. You're trying to steer the customer into a situation where they're not going to get beat over the head in a dark alley. Just to use
Exactly.
an analogy, right? And it's funny when people sub their stuff through my service. I'll never say anything unless, like, now I do have some that will say, "Hey, look at these 10 cards. If they were yours, what would you send?" And then I will. If they open the door and want my honest opinion, and then I will, and they'll say, like, "John, be honest. Like, you're not gonna hurt my feelings. I trust your judgment," type of thing. Unless I see something, where I'm getting that cards at the table, and I see like an obvious defect, like a ding corner, and I'll be like,
"Sure,
you see this, right?" And they're like, "Yeah," but much like you said, they're like, "That was one of the first cards, my dad got me, so I want to like get it slipped." So there's a reason behind that. And you don't know until you you don't know that until you have a conversation
for sure
about it. And so I try to be there in those terms, but I also, I try to be helpful, but without stepping on toes. But if someone asks, I'll gladly say, "Hey, I'd probably send, these 4, and I'd wait on these 6." But I always, end with like, "Hey, they're your cards. Like, you do, whatever you want to send them all, send them all." But if you're asking me, that's how I see it. So, and people, I think, appreciate, the honesty, and I think they know I'm giving them an honest assessment and trying to be fair to them. All right, let's talk a little bit about how Replay Sports Cards works. Now, you started off right with your own stores, like you own them. But now you're like you mentioned, franchising, without giving out necessarily the secret sauce, but what does that entail? How does that work? If someone is interested, just how the process goes.
Sure. Well, the secret sauce is simple. It's be a good person and treat your customers right. Honestly, genuinely, right? And that comes with people and all of that. So Replay, we started in 2021. We opened our first shop in Charlotte, North Carolina. And then we opened 3 more. We opened in Charleston, Boca Raton, back to back, three shops in 3 years. We actually moved our, I live in Boca right now. My business partner, Brent, lives in Charlotte. And then my other business partner, Mike Weinberger, lives in Denver. And so it made sense to move the Charleston shop to Denver. We've got oversight of the 3 corporate locations, especially as we're expanding, and as much as we're traveling, to make sure that we've really got a grasp on the shop. And so we hire great general managers in each of the shops, great assistant managers, great staff. We are really set up to succeed in those 3 locations. All of the future locations will be franchised. So Seymour, Indiana opened the last week of February, and I was there for the opening. Josh and Jason, they're local, Southern Illinois. I always say that. Southern Indiana boys, card collectors. Their kids are all about it. Community is phenomenal there. And I was fortunate enough to be there for their opening. I helped them, finalize the shop. And it's amazing. The really cool thing about Replay is it would be cool to open 100 shops, me to open 100 shops. But what's even cooler is me opening 3 shops and then allowing 97 collectors the opportunity to open a Replay location with great structure, great SOPs, a support staff that really sets them up to succeed. If they succeed, we succeed. If they fail, we fail. And so we're really behind them. And and helping them along the way, determining really good factors for franchisees. Again, it comes down to good people that love cards, that want to build a card community in their community. And Seymour, Indiana happened to be underserved, and it's an area where a really good shop with good customer experience could go a long way. And we saw that this, the last week of February. And so Replay, that's our main framework, is the franchise model, allowing collectors that want to open a shop in their community, giving them the opportunity to do so. And then on top of that, we stream 18 to 24 hours a day, 7 days a week on TikTok Live. We're getting jump started on eBay Live, which I'm super excited about. That'll be an awesome platform for us. And we also do Whatnot streams 2 to 3 times a week. Those are more single streams. And then TikTok and eBay will be more break and some single focused. But we have a large digital presence. We do franchise. And then probably the coolest thing we do is our Replay Gives Back campaign. So Replay Gives Back is our charity component. We go to local shows. We'll be at the National, we'll be at Fanatics Fest, set up, our normal setup, buying, selling, and trading, but also taking in donations. We've collected over 2 million cards for kids. We take those cards, package them into 25 card packs, give them out to charities. We've given out tens of thousands of packs to kids, both local to our shops, but also across the country. Did a really cool thing in Chicago. We collected a bunch of cards at the National last year and did some really cool drops with Boys and Girls Club at their flag football tournament. I was up in Detroit last year for the draft with my business partner, Brent Skeppel. That was amazing. We got to give out a bunch of packs to Big Brothers, Big Sisters. We partner with Clark Park Initiation, which is another thing in Detroit where they help youth, hockey, kids that want to play hockey there, give them packs. We're making our own packs, but also sending out some really cool packs for them as well. So it really is the coolest thing we do, but all of those things tie together. And again, the mission statement is simple. It's building community through cards. That's what we're all about. That's the Replay way. We do that in our shops. We do that on stream. We do that, at our charity drops. We do that at card shows across the country. And so that's kind of, my word vomit way of explaining to you what the Replay sports card, family and the Replay way is.
No, I love it. And again, anytime, when it comes to philanthropy, giving back, right? It's that kid that's getting that pack of cards, right? Maybe that might be how he starts collecting, right?
100%.
He might be on this podcast saying, hey, when I got that pack from Replay, I loved them. And maybe he's the next card store owner or franchise, right? You don't know. Yep. Like that little act, that little act of kindness could be a big ripple down the line. From some, I'll make up a person's name. Jim contacts you and says, "Hey, I'm in this city, wherever. I want to be a franchise, of a Replay Sports Cards. If all the stuff works out from that initial call, like what's the time frame to like a grand opening? I mean, every situation's different." But sure. In general.
Yeah, no, it's a great question. So we would, again, go through the full process. So background check, make sure it's a card person, right? That's super important to us, that they want to, not only make money through the Replay franchise program, but to also, be a card person, be someone that wants to build, community in and around their community through cards is super important. We would designate that we're not in the business of putting other shops out of business. It's the complete opposite. We're just trying to find areas that, need good card shops, and we want to pop them up there. So as long as, everything checks out, Jim sounds like a great dude. Definitely call me, Jim. I would love to set you up at the shop. But Jim would go through the process. Once he goes through the process, we would start looking at spots for him to potentially open up. We've got an entire real estate team that, would go through the process, make sure they're good. If we like the spot, we would, sign an LOA. And from there, honestly, the shop build out is, we built our Charlotte shop in a month. We just, every single day, nonstop, we built it in a month. Realistically, I would say probably, he signs the paperwork to be a franchisee within, 4 to 6 months they're open. We always like to do a soft opening before a grand opening, get the staff acclimated, make sure the community knows we're there. And then, a month or so after that, we'll do a grand opening. So Seymour was end of February. They'll probably have their grand opening sometime in April. Allows, again, the staff, the franchisees to get comfortable and the community to know we're there. And then we'll do a big grand opening for them as well. So, they can open up as quick as 2 or 3 months, all the way to, again, depending on if real estate takes a little longer or, we're having trouble finding a spot in that area. We're opening a shop in Nashville, Tennessee, which will be really cool. That'll come in the spring. That might be a little, it was going to take a second to find a spot. But hopefully we lock that spot in. Once we lock the spot in, that's the easy part. We paint it, we get it, we get our cases in there, we get our product. We're like, for all, like Salina, Kansas and Nashville, Tennessee, those are our 2 other signed franchise agreements. We're already buying product for them. We're already, buying slabs for them and singles and setting up the infrastructure on the back end, so that once the space is ready to rock, we're getting in there, or they're getting in there. They're helping us set up the framework. And I would say, long-winded way of saying probably 4 to 6 months is pretty realistic. But I wouldn't be surprised if some of these pop open 2 or 3 months after we sign them. Just depends sometimes on real estate and all of that stuff. But everything after real estate, once we have the keys, it's easy.
So you are like allocating or getting like wax and product to each of these stores. Yep. and locations. Now go ahead.
Oh, no, I'm sorry to interrupt. No, I was just going to say, so our 3 locations, Charlotte, Boca Raton, and Denver, those 3 we're direct with all the, the Tops, Upper Deck, Panini. The future shops and all the franchisees, they sign on knowing there's no direct guarantee from any of those. Tops, for example, they pause their direct accounts. Panini, we'll wait till they're open. Once they're open, then we start, trying to get those locked in. But without that, Brent Skeppel, he is integral in what we do. He is my business partner. I'm super tight with him. Him and I started the entire thing back in 21, and he's like the card expert. So he's got so many connections between the wax, the singles, both retail wax and a hobby wax, that we're securing that at good enough, prices, especially with the bulk buying, with the multiple shop situation, where we're able to stock their shops and restock their shops without any direct allocation. That would just be a cherry on top. And so we're building out these models with that in mind. We're not waiting to open a shop until we're allowed distribution. I think sometimes people try to open up shops specifically to get distribution or get allocation. That's not our game. Our game is cards through community through cards, getting a really good shop with a really good customer experience in these cities and in these small towns, and then hopefully those opportunities come knocking on our door. But yeah, it's a really awesome process, and but we handle that entire process, and then help them with their buying patterns when people come in and sell them stuff in shop as well.
Time to hear from one of our great sponsors, but Sports Card Nation will be right back after that.
Hobby Hotline is the hobby's only live interactive call-in show. Join some of your favorite hobby personalities every Saturday, 11 a.m. Eastern, 8 a.m. Pacific, to discuss the hottest hobby topics. If you miss us live, catch us after the fact on all major podcast platforms. Follow us on socials at Hobby Hotline.
Let's go! You are listening to the Sports Card Nation podcast.
Now, for a potential owner, do you have any rules in place? Like, you have to be open 10 to 8 Monday through Friday, or, can you speak to those?
Of course. Yeah. So all of our franchise locations will be 7 days a week. The time we collaborate and figure out a good time based on the other shops in the area. Some shops will close at 6. Some shops will close at 8. Some shops may be open, they might be open the same, open and close the same time every day. And they might have different hours, for a Friday and a Saturday. So it'll depend a little bit on times, but yes, all replay shops will be 7 days a week. That is a requirement. And then from there, again, all the buying patterns, what we're buying, what we're selling, what we're trading at, that type of stuff is all in. Like we bring them. There's franchisee training for a week, sometimes a week and a half, 2 weeks, to make sure they're fully prepared. And then we're with them for the opening and for that first weekend, and we kind of roll through that. And then the franchise model is retail only, right? And so one thing that happens sometimes is people get excited. You open a shop. All right, I want to start breaking. All right, I want to start doing this. And then you lose all of the energy, which should be focused on the retail experience. And you start spreading out that bandwidth, spreading out your staff. We started a full-on, digital program 4 years into opening. And we did that purposefully. We did breaks here and there, a couple single shows, but we had no business and no interest in starting digital and streaming until just last year, because that's when we felt really good about where our shops are, what product they have on the shelves, what singles they have in the showcase. And so, down the road, maybe franchisees will be able to stream, but right now the sole focus is, give your community an amazing retail experience. And then from there, 6 months, 12 months, assess and find some potential partnerships there. But it's retail focused, 7 days a week, 2 people in the shop. You'll have a GM, you'll have an AGM, and you'll kind of roll through that stuff and have some full-time and part-time staff, all fully vetted, background check and all of that stuff to make sure that we're putting the best people that we can behind the counter, putting the Replay logo on them.
You may have answered my next question with your sort of last line or two there, right? With the GM and the 2
Sure.
people. And you hope it doesn't happen, right? But unfortunately, we hear stories of some unscrupulous folks. We've got FedEx and postal workers stealing packages. If
Sure.
you get in a situation where it comes to your attention that one of your franchisees, whatever they're doing, is doing some stuff that's not above board. And again, I hope this never happens, but it's something I'm sure you've thought about as you want. Like, what's the sort of the protocol? Is that where the 2 people kind of come and play? That if one person has to go, you don't miss a beat. You kind of keep going and
yeah,
or how?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I mean, honestly, again, like you said, knock on wood. I'll knock on my head. I don't have any wood next to me, but honestly, like that's definitely something, again, like you said, could happen. Hopefully it doesn't. We have really, really tight inventory systems. We have really, really tight reporting. And so there's stock takes that happen weekly. There's, every piece of inventory in the shops are accounted for. And so things start to go missing. You can kind of nip that stuff in the bud and, make sure that everything's being taken care of. There's security cameras. There's a security system in each of our shops. We put them in safe locations so that, look, in Charlotte, we got robbed, external, not anyone inside, from Replay, but, we got hit. And, thankfully, again, like, being with us, we're giving, we have the right insurance programs and stuff like that help protect. Someone, God forbid, comes in the store, have it all, like we are not at the risk of anyone from our team being in a bad, position and feeling like they have to be Superman, have it all. We are not in the position of anyone, being in a bad spot like that and trying to save the day or anything like that. But yeah, I mean, there's parameters in place. There's, I'm sure specifically, I'm not a lawyer, but, my business partner is, so I let him handle that stuff. There's parameters in the franchise, documents to protect against, stuff like that. But yeah, again, and I think it really starts really with that framework of good people, vetting them, walking through protocols, and then again, having a really strong inventory system where if one box or one card is missing, it's every week there's an inventory stock, and that's going to be really easy to find out and get to the bottom of it, with the cameras and inventory system. So probably a non-factor, but you're right. I mean, you never know.
No, and that's not, it's not the greatest. It's not a positive thing necessarily, but it's just how my mind works. I figured I'd ask that question. You mentioned maybe getting up to 100 stores in 3 years. One thing I loved hearing you say is like, you're obviously not just putting them in random places or throwing darts at a dartboard.
Nope.
You're doing the demographics. You're like, hey, this area is in need of something like this. There's not 10 stores there already, and we're going to be the 11th. We're serving the need for the community. Just a general question. This is not at Replay itself, but do you ever think, and we see more stores opening just naturally across the board, you think there's a saturation point when it comes to LCSs where there could be too many and maybe the bottom line gets affected? I've asked this question with shows as well. We're seeing all these shows. We're seeing shows where like the two shows in one city, and there was in Pittsburgh, there was two card shows literally across the street from each other. When it comes to LCSs, though, is there like a tipping point or a saturation? Obviously, the market will bear that out. That's the easy answer. But, from a schematics or a demo, how do you see that?
Yeah, I think there's a lot of underserved areas. There really, really are. And again, like I'm excited to open in Nashville, but I'm opening in Nashville not because it's a flashy city, but I'm opening in Nashville because we've got a fantastic RJ is a fantastic, franchisee. He's going to be amazing, and he's going to lead that community with really good efforts. And again, put it in a spot where we're not, Nash Cards does great over there. I'm not going to put it next door, And so, designating those areas. I think there's a lot of places. The amount of times I hear on our streams or, people visiting from out of town, like, man, we need one of these here. Like, I got to drive an hour. I mean, there are 50 states, however many cities, however many small towns, there's a lot of opportunity. So no, I don't really think so. And for me, like, give me the Kansases, give me the Seymour, Indianas. Like, I want the areas that, I would love to be, I'm a gambler. I would love to be, in Vegas, and I'm sure we'll be there at some point, but we love the guys over at Paradise. Again, I'm not going to open up next door. I'm going to, make sure it makes sense. And so I'm not going for the, the flashy headliney, big splash areas. Again, we'll hit them just by chance, Denver's not a small town, right? And so I can't say we're only going to open up in small towns, but I want a lot of that. I want a lot of people that are eager to, they're getting into breaks because they don't even have a shop near them. And so that to me is really, really important. And again, we'll open up in the big cities for sure, but those small towns mean a lot to us, and we want to serve the collectors in those areas that haven't had a card shop their entire life. Like I couldn't imagine that. I could not imagine, being an hour away from a card shop. Like, that is terrible. We got to get Replay, in that town or in the surrounding areas and cut that drive time, because it's only going to grow the community. It's only going to grow the next generation of collectors. Yeah,
well said. And like you said, I'm a New York City kid growing up in Brooklyn. And so There was always, whether it be I'm old enough where it was the corner store, but as I got older, it was, there was card shops. I even worked. That's how I really cut my teeth, was working as a 12 or 13-year-old kid in the card store. The owner's like, Newman, you're here so much, I might as well put you to work. So, again, card store, LCSs will always have that place in my heart. And I think they're just so vital and crucial to the success of the hobby overall. So, I'm definitely waving that pennant for sure. Well, I appreciate, I know you're a busy guy, Mike. I appreciate you making some time for us and our listeners. As always, I give the guests kind of the final word. Give out any social medias, websites, anything. No rush. Take your time. Whatever you want to share with those listening, to direct them where to go to see what you guys are doing.
I appreciate you. And thank you so much for having me on. I love this platform and how you again, I feel like I'm just hanging out, talking with someone in one of our shops. And so this is a really, really great platform you have, and a great little community you got going on as well. We love it. I hopefully we can connect again in 6 or 12 months and see kind of how we've grown and what we're up to, for sure.
Well, I was going to say, Mike, like, I usually have people back on too. So by all means, as long as you want to come back, we're all right. All right.
I love it. Yeah. But to plug us real quick, replaysportscards.com, pretty much Replay Sports Cards on all platforms. TikTok, we're live 7 days a week. We'll be on eBay Live. We'll be on Whatnot as well. You could follow us on Instagram and Facebook as well. But you'll be able to find us, Replay Sports Cards, and then our sub shops, Replay Denver and Replay Seymour, have some shops going or some channels going. But again, John, really thank you so much for being on. It's amazing to share my business and what we're doing and the good we're doing for the hobby, and just want to get our voice out there. And again, your platform's fantastic. So thank you so much for having me on.
I appreciate you coming on. Like you said, I know you got a travel schedule and you're a dad and all the stuff that goes along.
I wish I was a dad. I'm not a dad yet. Replay's my baby, so I guess I kind of am a dad too. Replay.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah,
there you go.
Yeah.
So, well, you still listen. I got the busy part right. I got the busy
100%. I just didn't want my parents. They'll be watching this back. They'll be like, "You're a dad now? What is going on?" So,
when did this happen?
Yeah, when did this happen? No, I appreciate it. Eventually, I'll have a family and I'll be a dad. But for now, Replay's my baby. But yes, I am very busy, and I'm happy to take more time, and you and I can sit down. And if you're at any shows and we cross paths, we'll go grab a beer and hang out.
Yeah, no doubt. I'm attending the Nationals, so maybe that'll be.
We'll see you there.
Hope to see you there, meet you, and
100%.
And a handshake. And like you said, I like beer, so you won't get any arguments from me there.
I love it.
Thanks, Mike.
Thank you.
Fun chopping it up with Mike there, Mike Martin, Replay Sports Cards. Doing some big stuff, man. Having have all those card stores, LCSs, and they have a system. They want to provide a customer experience. They want to have great product available. This is just not opening up a store real quick. There's a process here, and love picking his brain and finding out how this stuff all works. And God bless his team, man. That's not as easy as he made it sound. Let's put it that way. So, continued success to him. Again, thanks to him for making some time. And if you think you live in an area and you have, the wherewithal to run a card store, reach out to Mike. He gave out his way to contact him there at the end, and see if you're a fit, if your area is a fit, maybe you'll be one of those future LCS owners. So there you go. We're going to come up, we're going to finish with our Hobbies the People announcer of the week and wrap up this week's episode.
Time for our Hobby is the People announcer of the week.
What up, everybody? It's your boy, Cousin Oz, the People's Mailman. And along with Cousin Tony, the Architect, we are Cousins Collectibles. Make sure to check us out on the Cousins Collectibles podcast, as well as on Instagram at Cousins_Collectible. Before we get out of here, we wanted to remind you of a couple things.
First and foremost, remember, the hobby is the people.
And as always, keep focused, keep positive, and keep collecting.
If you'd like to be the Hobby is the People announcer of the week, do a WAV or MP3 file and send it to sportscardnationpc@gmail.com.